Join us in a festival that promises to be extraordinary, because Bali is extraordinary.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Ubud Writers and Readers Festival 2021. This year, the festival returns with the theme Mulat Sarira, self-reflection, which is drawn from a Balinese Hindu philosophy. From the 8th to the 17th of October, we have been exploring the meaning of self-reflection, cultural introspection, and human rights, examining who we are, what unites and divides us, and what drives our actions. So, my name is Gill Westerway. I'm a long-term associate of the Ubud Writers Festival, and I'm here this morning with Elora Hardy and Arief Rabik to lead a session entitled Bambu Visionaries. As I was surfing the web looking for information about your work, I found this quote: "Together, Elora and Arief are heroic voices for this powerful plant, bamboo, a vital material in Bali as both an environmentally conscientious building material that flexes into engineering wonders and as a renewable resource that can heal damaged landscapes." I thought that captured very nicely the sort of nub of what you both do. But could I ask you each to maybe introduce yourselves and to explain in what way you feel you qualify as bamboo visionaries? Maybe we can we can start with Elora. Bamboo visionary number one.
Thank you. I grew up here in Ubud and expected that everything in the world would be this beautiful and this connected with nature, especially as it was in the 80s. And I was wrong. So everything else that I did kept trying to circle back to finding a way for the future of the world to look like I felt it should be from being down in that river valley or up in those rice fields. And I got the chance through my family to be involved with working with bamboo. My dad had got the bug of bamboo from Arief's mom, Ibu Linda Garland. She was banging him over the head with it for a while there, and finally at some point he got the message and wanted to have a green future. And so I came back to help him and then found myself leading the team, and that was 12 years ago, and now we've built around 200 structures, 200 different unique structures, many of them entirely out of bamboo.
Wow.
And so we've been part of shifting the conversation about bamboo from being something that is known, especially in Asia, as being not long-lasting, as being very widely used, but always for temporary things. Right. Some ancient techniques of treatment or preserving them worked some of the time, or worked but eventually were taken apart. There's amazing things in history that were built out of bamboo, but not as many in the past century until the past couple decades has got momentum around the world. And so we were able to connect bamboo with also a certain number of high-end clients who were willing to let us build them a house entirely out of bamboo.
Wow.
And that shifted, I think, international perception about the material. We're able to do it at that really high level, to be able to show it as almost as a sort of luxury. Not that I like that word really, but as a quality, high-end, worth investing in, that could last a long time thing. And so that's how we've been a part of the bamboo world.
Great, thanks. That's a nice introduction. Arief, similarly, how did you get involved in bamboo?
Well, yeah, I mean, to claim to be a bamboo visionary from nothing, I think, is a tall order. And I think, both of us had pretty visionary parents, and, Bali is definitely a melting pot of many visionary people and has a visionary past, and especially this area. And literally, we were playing down in that valley right there, which is amazing.
Yeah, when you were telling me before, I thought at first you meant in Ubud generally, and then I realized you meant here, in this very place, in this very valley.
Just up there and just down there.
Just down there.
But yeah, so, my mother, the late Linda Garland, the amazing late Linda Garland, started working with bamboo in 1973 with, big bamboos, Dendrocalamus asper. And 10 years later, I was born, and, my mother even paid for my birth with a bamboo sofa and 2 bamboo chairs. So I have a hutang budi, right? I have a spiritual debt to bamboo, I guess. And we both grew up in this bubble where there was a lot of bamboo. So yeah, I think from there it was just a natural progression. And I studied environmental science and really saw more and more kind of from my mother's vision how bamboo played a very important role for, in those days, the reforestation effort. And now we've really kind of iterated that vision to the restoration effort and the restoration of ecosystems around the world, and how we need to create this restoration economy. And so that's really the Environmental Bamboo Foundation, started by my mother and many visionaries. We, the new guard, including senior advisor.
Junior visionaries.
Yes, Elora, the new guard are really taking that forward and creating a very large network of amazing people who are working together to make this vision happen. And so our vision is that bamboo farmers and indigenous communities and rural communities are the climate change mitigation champions, are the restoration champions of the world of the future, and we have to give them this opportunity, and so that's a lot of what I work on lately. Yeah.
That sounds great. Now I'm going to have a short conversation with Elora about her work and her relationship as an architect with bamboo. But if you want to butt in, you've told me that you're like brother and sister, and so if you feel like butting in and contradicting her or interrupted her, please feel free, yeah? So Elora, maybe you can tell us a little bit about your relationship as an architect between the space around us and the materials used to, how they can influence the design of that space.
So my relationship to space and creating spaces actually comes more from a sculptural background. I went to fine art school, and I've never studied architecture. Fortunately, in my team, we have some really smart architects who have various kinds of training, and different people who have been involved in the work leading up to the work that we do today. Some have come from more of like just a hands-on building background, like Jorg Stam. Some came from more of an artistic background as well. Aldo Landwehr was the creative director before me, and he also has passed away tragically, but he was a sculptor basically as well. He created these amazing forms that started to open up like what you could do with bamboo beyond a traditional shape. And then there were some young architects in the early days who just really took a risk in their career and decided to go wander into the jungle and participate with us, whereas they might have otherwise have taken proper jobs in Jakarta. Like David Wijaya, who leads my team now, he talks about rocking up in his suit to green school on day one, being like, hi, where am I? And he's still here. So there's been a lot of amazing people involved with different kinds of training or lack of training, and part of that is to do with I think we've boxed ourselves in our relationship to space. I think that's an inevitable thing because we need protection. Less so today, it's pretty nice out, but some days you just want to be sealed off from the heat. Other parts of the world, you need protection from the cold or many other things. So the creation of space, of architecture, partly just has to do with creating layers of protection for ourselves, being soft human creatures. So I respect and understand that. The other issue is that we sort of took a path with the Industrial Revolution that led to flat surfaces. And that led to sort of straight lines and supporting systems that really are box-like. And so in the simplest terms, part of what we do is like, how do we get ourselves out of the box? What other shapes would serve us well, be strong, feel good, and be created beautifully from this material that we've chosen to use so much of the time? So we're sort of escaping something as well as building on something while finding a new direction. And in that, we really listen to and take cues from bamboo, the properties of the material, the fact that it's a long, hollow cylinder that actually tapers and curves, usually in multiple directions along its length, make it quite unruly, or you could say just have a strong personality. And so imposing your artistic or engineering will on that material is a very different possibility. And so rather than trying to impose and structure it like that, how can we play with it? How can we bend with it? And that has opened up a lot in terms of creating space and sort of a different feeling of architecture.
You talk about where bamboo is sometimes well placed to self-express something, and in other contexts, you'd rather use other materials. Can you elaborate on that a little bit? And then I think we'll look at a video clip about how you've used bamboo.
I think it's so important to recognize in any material or in any individual, any other human you're interacting with, what are the strengths, what are the sensitivities, what are the possibilities, what are the vulnerabilities. And so with bamboo, once you handle the treatment solution, which Arief will speak more about, I'm sure, like, you still need to address the fact that it's vulnerable to water and to UV. And so we need to protect it. There are many places that you see day to day where it's misused in a way, or it's used in a way that's only sort of suitable short term. So when you put a bodeg wall up against the side of something, or a row of bamboo poles, and it's getting a lot of sun and water, it's not going to last more than a few years. It's just not. So when you design with bamboo, I think you should protect it while you let it express itself. You should create the design in response to how it can serve its purpose best. And in some places, the design constraints are such that you need another material to complement it. Or there's a creative possibility of having a different material do something amazing with it, and they can juxtapose each other. So aside from just the simple practicalities of, like, don't bury the post in the ground because it will rot, you need to lift it up, it needs boots, as Arief says. You need to stop the moisture from getting up into it. Aside from those practicalities, there's just still a lot of other creative possibilities when you complement it with other materials. The problem is, what other materials grow in 4 years and don't require intensive natural resources or stuff that other things need to use up? Bamboo will grow wild. Like, there's a lot of care and love that you can put into optimizing a bamboo clump. And that is, and that takes effort and care, right? But it is just, compared to everything else that you can consider, even after you ship it around the world, it has used up so much less than anything else. So what other materials deserve to stand beside it? I'm still playing with that, and I can't find others, but we're
You're still looking.
Playing, yeah. Arief, talk, you want to.
I was holding back.
You're shaking your head vigorously. Would
No,
you
no,
like to add anything to that?
I mean, this is, look at this. This is Elora's agave. That's another beautiful
Agave.
renewable.
There are other materials out there.
Yeah. No, I mean, definitely that, protection by design, right, is such an important concept that I think the old guard had one understanding of it, and now as the vision grows, we're really, held to account to really make that work. And I think it's been a nice challenge for all of us. And there's some very important principles that you have to follow to do preservation in an appropriate way that, pioneering environments and, people in these environments are able to do. And then the rest you really do have to design appropriately so that it still works. I mean, this bedeg ceiling here is exactly designed in an appropriate way that it will last a long time. But unfortunately, not all people use bamboo in this understanding. So, yeah.
Okay. Maybe at this point we look at a couple of video clips from Elora that illustrate the way that bamboo is used, and I think the second one is going to show a finished product.
While you're looking that up, I'll tell people a little bit about it. Start it whenever you're ready. So what we're about to see is a recent construction that is really a new step in bamboo construction and bamboo design and bamboo collaboration. It is possible because of a lot of different people with different skills around the world coming together. And IBUKU really acted as the sort of pivot point to get all those people to play nice, to all those different talented people to be able to connect. And so the resulting design is something that really takes us outside of most of the buildings you've seen in the world and into a conversation of structures that aren't really focused on a compressive system. If you think about posts of a building, they're usually bearing weight and compressive, and they need to be quite big and strong. Depending on what kind of material it is, you can play with that, but it's based on a very vertical compressive system. The building you're about to see is actually more of a shell or a basket. So the way that everything works together means that a lot of smaller, light members can interconnect in a way that makes a very strong surface. And what it pulls away from is actually, like, the alternative would have been a truss system. Factories have beams and trusses. This does not. So it has this very light feeling, has a very organic feeling, because actually what it resembles the most is the rib cage of a mammal. And the way that there are bones, there are ribs, but they're all quite delicate, and they're interconnected by what's like the muscle and the fascia and the tendon. And so you'll see that, that the structure really feels unique, and it's because it's a whole different route of how to build.
That was the finished product, yeah?
Yeah, we have a process video as well. Now you can see that one.
'16th chapel of Bali right
Absolutely. Where is this wonderful creation?
So that's the Ark at Green School Bali. It's their gymnasium. It's also now the biggest building on campus, the space where community will gather. So they relate to it more as a wellness space.
Right.
A community gathering space, a space to hold the sort of energy of the whole school.
Amazing. You were actually educated there at the Green School? Or?
No, Green School was only founded a dozen years ago.
Right.
I actually was educated in a few places around here, some public schools, and then the international school, and then overseas.
Oh, beautiful creation. I must go and check out the Green School at some point.
Even though Elora looks young. She's
Not
a
that
little
young.
older
She's
than, yeah.
really, really ancient. To what extent is it important for you to collaborate with other designers and builders who've a shared interest in bamboo?
I mean, it's essential. I can't do any of it on my own. Very few people could do very much on their own. It's so much a group process. The design and construction process, I think, anyway. And then especially, perhaps with bamboo.
Yes. Tell us a little bit about your Bamboo U workshop.
Oh, Bamboo U! I wish my brother Orin was here to talk about it. So at IBUKU, we would, in the early years especially, we just got so many messages like online saying, "This is amazing, I want to be part of this, how do I learn this, let me come, teach me. I want to know." So many people around the world were, like I was, like saw a little bit of what had already been built and were like, I have to be part of that, I want to know how to do that, I want to do that. Back where I come from, we have bamboo here. And so that was a real hunger, and it was difficult up against trying to like actually be a company that could design and build and keep going and focus on that. And my brother identified this, and he said, let's create Bamboo U. So he took the initiative with his wife Maria to set up, based on their permaculture workshop background, to set up a bamboo design workshop. And so for the past several years, until the past couple years before that, they were like 40 people from around the world would come together for 10 days and do these hands-on workshops and actually build something. And Arief joins and teaches about agroforestry, and other people from around the world would come to that as well. And like guest lecturers, like experts in construction or design or engineering. And so it really became like a center of the bamboo community, the bamboo design and build community anyway. And continues to be online because they got it all filmed and put it online. And so now a lot of people who otherwise wouldn't have been able to make it can come, which I think is also what's happening here. People who can log in from around the world. So I think that's a beautiful part of it.
Great, yeah.
God bless technology.
God bless technology, yeah. Yeah, and it gives your work a real international dimension.
Yeah.
Okay, Laura, let me turn to Arief and cross-examine you. One thing I was made aware of when I was watching your video was that bamboo is actually a giant grass rather than a tree, and I wasn't really aware of that before.
Yes.
What's the advantage of using bamboo for your purposes rather than other plants? Why bamboo?
Well, I think because it's a giant grass, which is actually a secret that we're trying to tell more and more people about, is the trunk of the tree is actually underground. And so what you see above the ground are branches, right? And so we're actually just coppicing branches like you would a willow, right? And so you don't actually harvest the trunk every time you harvest these cones, these amazing big poles. And so, there's the baby pole, and there's the mama pole, and there's the grandma pole, and there's the great-grandma pole, and you only harvest the great-grandma. And that means that every single year you get a new baby, a new generation, and a new great-grandmother comes along. And so it's this amazing, sustainable, fast-growing timber that then can, per clump, hold 5,000 liters of water in just 4 to 5 large rain events. It builds soil 2 centimeters plus in just the direct area around it every single year of humus, of organic.
That's amazing.
So it's an amazing part of the mosaic of the biodiversity of the tropical belt of the world. Yeah.
What about the geographical scope of your work? Is it just Bali or just Indonesia? Or tell us a little bit about where you've worked and where you've taken your initiatives.
Yeah. The foundation was started in Bali, but actually the first large project of the Environmental Bamboo Foundation was in East Indonesia, in NTT, on the island of Flores, after the Maumere earthquake in 1992. And so since then, we've been working actually all through the archipelago. And so now we have the 1,000 Bamboo Village program and internationally the Bamboo Village Initiative. That is trying to spread this vision and a model that we've created.
Right. Yeah. And internationally?
We're working in Myanmar, we're working in Peru, we're working in India, slowly, and seeding in other countries, in Ghana, with other champions.
Great. Let's focus in on your bamboo initiative, your bamboo village initiative.
Yes.
And I think we could start off by showing a 3-minute video.
Tropical rainforests are important to us as humans because they are foundation to Earth's life support systems. Without these healthy soils, without these healthy water systems, without the healthy air, we cannot survive and thrive on this planet. We want to create what we call a restoration economy, where we take degraded land and we reintroduce native species and set aside areas for food crops and cash crops, where people, especially rural farming communities, can actively restore these degraded lands around the world and make a very good economy for themselves, their families, and their communities in the process. Our program, the 1,000 Bamboo Villages, allows farmer cooperatives to produce value-added bamboo products at the village level by creating an integrated forest-to-factory production system, and allows farmers to produce 2 main bamboo products: bamboo strips and bamboo pellets. Strips are the raw material for bamboo planks that can supply woodworking industries of the world. Bamboo pellets are a byproduct of the strip production and are an excellent source of carbon-neutral bioenergy that can generate electricity and provide a safe fuel for cooking. Currently, the world emits up to 40 billion tons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere
51, I think.
every year. Our vision is to take 1,000 bamboo villages here in Indonesia and expand that to 9 other countries that collectively will absorb and remove out of the atmosphere 1 billion tons of carbon dioxide every single year. We aim to restore 2 million hectares of degraded land, generate an industry revenue of $6 to $9 billion per annum, and create more than 1 million jobs in the process. In order to successfully execute the 1,000 Bamboo Village vision, we have 5 key pathways. Strengthening investment drivers for bamboo to convince farmers and businesses and bankers that bamboo is a very good investment. Creating the Bamboo Village app to bring farmers and markets together on one online platform. Sustainable bamboo certification that ensures that the supply chain and value chain for bamboo are sustainable. Activating markets to make sure that all the bamboo gets bought. And the national strategy that really empowers the support and resources needed to make a community-based bamboo industry successful, not only in Indonesia, but around the world. This national strategy is supporting farmers to grow bamboo on these degraded lands, manage these forestry management systems, build a village-based factory, and sell these pellets and strips at a fair price that allows them to understand how much money they are making at the end of the month, at the end of the year, and into the future, so that they can send their kids to school as well as restoring the degraded lands around them. Bamboo really does have something for everybody. The textile industry has a sustainable cotton alternative. The construction industry has a sustainable wood alternative. The energy industry has a new, rapidly renewable energy source. With your investment, in the next 5 years, we can create 1,000 bamboo villages around Indonesia that empowers more than 1 million people to enter this restoration economy and restore 2 million hectares of degraded land and create this template here in Indonesia so that we can show it to the world. So please contact us if you are interested to join the movement to restore the degraded lands of the world with the bamboo restoration economy.
Nice.
What he said.
You see, anyway. When was that video made?
2 years ago.
2 years ago,
Yeah.
and
Right
did a lot of people respond
Yes,
with
we got
funding and support?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, we've had an amazing process of creating partnerships after we launched that at COP25, the Conference of Parties of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. It's a really nice long word, but it's it's really the Paris Agreement, right? Was created with this under this platform, and 195 countries are coming together to really think about how we can mitigate those 51 billion tons of carbon dioxide going up into the atmosphere every year. And Indonesia, we have 1.8 billion tons going up every single year.
It's a fair bit.
Fair bit. And with 1,000 bamboo villages, we can absorb 100 million tons back down, draw down, back into biomass that we can build beautiful arcs with, hopefully, and do a lot of amazing things, right? And I think, you start with degraded land and these rural communities around Indonesia, and there's more than 100 million hectares of degraded land. More than half of Indonesia is actually degraded from a biogeochemical cycle perspective. And so we're focusing on 2 million inside state forest land that the president in 2015 launched a social forestry program that gives free concessions to these rural communities. So they get the land free for 35 years, as long as they write a nice business plan, they pay tax, they can plant all that they like, and of course we have a system of bamboo agroforestry, so not just bamboo, and they wait 7 years, let it grow, and they start this process of creating a forest to factory integrated system, and they make over $1 million of revenue, not profit.
Wow.
Profit depending on how well they work together. But it's, this system really builds on a lot of this understanding of like adaptive, collaborative management that we need to create for our future, right? And really looking at these huge amounts of degraded land as an opportunity.
Right.
And these farmers in the rural parts of Indonesia and the world across the tropical belt as our champions, that actually we're not investing enough in.
Fantastic.
But we can.
Focusing in on the Bamboo Village Initiative, how do you work with the villages?
Yeah, so, I mean, for anyone who's worked with villages and going and knocking on their door and saying, "Hi, we have a great program for you," it's of course not that straightforward.
How receptive are they?
In the beginning, they are as most villages are. You're probably the millionth program that's knocking on their door. Nice. So they're hesitant and the trust is low. But building consensus and building trust is really what we try to do. And we try to be a bridge between lots of disparate systems and stakeholders who actually just need to have the right conversation to create the right partnership. And it's a lot of that social side, right? That we actually have to work on before thinking about how to grow bamboo. And once you have that social side, it's actually a lot easier.
So can you give me an example of a sort of strategy, a tactic for building that trust?
Yes, so we have a process that we call Sekolah Lapangan Bambu, a bamboo field school. It's a 6 to 8 month participatory process of working with the communities, and they come together once a week and they talk about these different components of how to set up these partnerships and how to create a sustainable forestry management system. And who's going to go out there and manage it, and who's going to go out there and harvest it, and who's going to send the truck out there, and all these details. And then how much does each person who does their individual part get compensated so that the benefit sharing is great in a landscape of exploitation for the last whoever knows how many years, right? And so we have to take away that exploitation and find the win-win solution where everyone does get the right compensation for their sweat.
Right.
So it's a process, to say the least.
I also saw from one of your other videos that you work primarily with women, and that women's empowerment is a very strong theme in your work. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Absolutely, yeah. So the starting foundations of our process is really to prove something that is real in front of the communities. And sometimes when we go to the cooperatives directly, they kind of bicker and they can't have that consensus. So now our new approach is really to go straight to the household and actually to the women. We're very pragmatic. They understand their needs. They have very clear ways they spend their money. Not to say anyone else doesn't, but they at least do. And so we work with them to create 8,000 bamboo babies or propagules per household. And they bring in their neighbors and sometimes the kids and sometimes grandma and grandpa. And they create these propagules. And then the cooperative can see, oh, this is what you're talking about.
So it's concrete for them.
Yeah, and that kind of pulls everything together. So we work with women to really create that foundation of consensus. And women are better than men typically, in our experience, at doing that. And then we have these propagules become the investment of the women into the social forestry cooperative, which brings up their status in the decision-making process, which is very important. And our learnings from China is that without the women, the social forestry programs fail.
Really?
And yet in Indonesia, most social forestry programs
run by men.
Are completely run by not women. Yeah. So we need to find that way for the win-win solution between the two sides of gender. Absolutely.
Right, good. And so far you're having positive results?
With the women, they go straight to work. Not too much talk. It's amazing.
You actually talked in your video about using bamboo to create an ecosystem of business solutions for village-level bamboo industry.
Yes.
Can you sort of unpack that a little bit, this ecosystem of business solutions?
Yes. Well, so, a landscape where you grow sugar palm and you grow bamboo and you can grow moringa and you can grow all these amazing species that create this knitted hydrology, of shallow roots, medium roots, and deep roots, that's giving you this environmental services, but it's also giving you above the ground all these products, timber and non-timber. And so we have to look at how these communities can manage, harvest, and sell these products to motivate the whole process, right? And so, for example, managing these processes is very expensive typically and historically, and so we use, for example, different apps now that really help these individual families to report and prove their compliance directly to an app. So there doesn't need to be somebody that gets typically paid a lot more than them to check in on them. Right? And even from a certification perspective, the largest buyers in the world need certification and need evidence of compliance. And so now we flip the certification process. Instead of sending white-collar support from Germany to the middle of nowhere in Indonesia, through these apps, as long as they input their data every day, they're innocent until proven guilty, rather than guilty until proven innocent by a white-collar auditor. Yeah. So it's it's a fully integrated approach to activate that process.
Excellent. You also talk about the holistic nature of the bamboo village model.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that holistic approach?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, so we don't believe in bamboo on its own, because actually, historically, bamboo on its own doesn't work, right? It kind of booms and busts within kind of 50 to 120 years. It actually goes to flower and it dies. And then it tries to spread its seed and start that whole process again. So when you do agroforestry systems, when you have the different root bases and when you have these different biogeochemical cycling that happen, and we have, it's an agroforestry in flora and also in the community, an agroforestry of different actors who come together to really work together in this, to make this system happen. So one bamboo village is actually not a village. It's a landscape of 7 to 10 communities who work together at this village level, doing this value addition at the village level. And so, and then they sell that off to the world. And that across the whole tropical belt of the world, just with our model, can be the new fossil fuel. And rapidly renewable fuel. It can be the new fiber. It can be the new wood. It can be the new plastic from these amazing agroforestry systems, of which bamboo is an amazing catalyst. But it's not just about bamboo. Yeah.
Arief, give us examples of the other plants. You talk
Yes.
about bamboo and then other plants growing around it and among it, because I
Yes.
feel like I need those other plants.
Yes.
Or whatever the other plants are within the building that
Yeah.
creates that, rather than having it just a purely bamboo situation.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, agave is
one
an
of them.
amazing one. Yeah, that makes sisal. Sugar palm that makes sugar, right? I mean, you can just basically look out here in this valley and you have all the amazing breadfruit, coconut, albizia, you know, all the different fruit
Banana
trees.
fiber.
Banana,
Yeah.
absolutely. You know, it's every single landscape will have its own ecological context of amazing different forest products. So, you know, in Bali, we can go to the communities and look at what do they have, right?
Yeah.
What is the biodiversity they have, and how can we work those species? And when you go to Mexico, what are the species that they have? And it's actually an amazing opportunity. And plus, those are the species that allow all the fauna and all the fungus underground to really activate. Because if we bring in introduced species, they don't know each other, and it can take up to 1,000 years for them to get along. So it's like,
We
hey,
haven't got that much time. No.
let's work with what we got, right? Yeah.
Also the point that the bamboo sort of needs to be harvested to be able to continue to capture the carbon,
Yes.
because otherwise what happens if you don't?
Yeah, it just basically grows denser and denser, and it grows higher and higher from the ground, and it basically kills itself.
itself.
It strangles itself, yeah.
So you're only sequestering the carbon once you use it.
Yes, exactly. So the ecosystem carbon of a bamboo has a very fast cycle, and actually once that great-grandmother starts dying, right, and at about 6 to 7 years it dies, that becomes soil and even becomes CO2 within a few years.
Really?
So the carbon cycle is very quick. But if you harvest that great-grandmother and then you make a beautiful arc out of it, yeah, you get a service life of, 20, 30, maybe more years. And so
80, 100?
80, 100,
Let's hope
hopefully.
so.
Yeah. Oh, hey, decision makers of the world, invest in great preservation for bamboo, please. Because the technology's been here since the 70s. But
Yes.
yeah, it takes a village to make all these components come together. And yeah.
So looking forward, what next? You talked to me about social forestry concessions.
Yes, social forestry concessions, investing in these rural communities, these indigenous communities. Indigenous communities are probably the easiest to convince that that land is something that they should take care of, because they do have ownership. We, everybody in this room, probably don't actually have that much land that we truly feel is ours, and there's not much landscape that we truly feel is ours. We have to change that. So we all have to be
Custodians. of our own
Well,
land.
we have to feel the value, and we have to truly believe that the value in these landscapes is for us. And we don't, as a global society and also even as smaller communities. And so we can change that. There's a lot of interesting things, and for me, social forestry is a game changer. It really just allows for these small little, demarcations of land, 10 hectares per household. Imagine if you got 10 hectares free from the government. Elora got 10 hectares free I got 10 hectares free from the government. And we could plant, our own little interpretation of these agroforestry systems. It would change the game.
Sure.
So we want to do that all across the world. 2 billion hectares of degraded land, 2 billion hectares of opportunity.
Wow. Just one further question to you, Arief, and then I want to ask Elora, what next for you? You mentioned that you're heading to my neck of the wood, Glasgow, to a climate change conference. Yeah?
Yes, COP26. Yeah,
So-
it's really exciting.
What will you be talking about there? Everything we've been talking about this morning, I guess, and more.
Yes, yeah, we have 2 sessions, one on partnerships and one on women activating this climate change mitigation solution and activating the finance. Because we actually believe that the women should get it first, and they'll create that foundation, and then we can work from that foundation. So, yeah,
Great.
it's
Well,
really
good
exciting.
luck. Good luck with that. And
Thank you.
be a wonderful
Wish us luck.
representative for the work that's going on in Indonesia. We're all very proud of you.
Yes, thank you.
Elora, what next for you? Where do you see your work going with bamboo?
As a design studio, we just see playing with, continuing to play with bamboo, to push bamboo forward, to take it farther than it's been before, take it into areas that express it the way that doesn't exist with other buildings, really create structures that offer something new to the conversation of architecture and design, break open that box. And in doing so, to do it with combining other materials, and also to do it around the world. So now, rather than just working primarily in Bali with Balinese craftsmen and really relying so much on their skills, which are immense, we want to look at also having ways to create designs that can be realized in other parts of the world by other types of craftsmen with other techniques and other types of bamboo, and collaborating with people in those parts of the world to create designs that are really suitable and realizable there, to spark that. While also as a design studio, it's not so much always about the form of the building, about the architectural and structural systems for us. In this conversation, decade-long conversation with bamboo, we've really started to listen for almost like the self-centered part of it, because we're human. We're kind of, I think, we're all interconnected, but we're also just ourselves and our bodies, and we need whatever we do to pay us back, to feel good to us, and then our families, and then our communities, and we can relate to broader layers, but just on the basic level, I feel like space, the spaces around us are another layer of ourself. We've got our bodies, we've got our clothing, we've got our technology, we've got our rooms and our towns and our cities, and these are all layers of our identity. So I'm just interested in how space and the journey through it can take us into a future that we would be excited to dream of. What does that look like? What is the flow through a house? What is the flow through a campus? How can that journey just support us and make us feel like our best selves, like our most comfortable at home selves? I think one interesting gift that I've found from being brought up in Bali, aside from the obvious wonderfulness of getting to have a childhood here, a gift of that is also the disorientation of being from somewhere else, with parents from somewhere else, but feeling at home here. The sense of belonging is different. And I think I'm always just seeking a sense of belonging, to reconcile that. And I think that we're all feeling that with nature. I think we have felt so distanced from the natural world that we are part of it. So if the natural world is speaking through us, we're the only voice, we're the only consciousness that is part of the natural world that we're aware of. And so if that's our role, then we really need to get reconnected so that we can speak in a way that ties everything back together. I think the future needs everything to just be wrapped back together, to this sense of self-interest in our own bodies, to also happen in the other layers of ourselves, which is that valley and each other and all of it. So there's this reinterconnection that needs to happen, and we just need so the sense of belonging can just happen in a room, in the feeling of leaning against the pole of the building that's sheltering you. The simple bamboo pole being so not, I don't want to say human, but so natural. Like it has its own identity, but yet it's friendly. The contour, the imperfection, the variety. There's something in that we deeply relate to. Not that every pole in every building needs to be a bamboo pole, but that symbol to me means that there's just a way of identifying with and reconnecting all of it. And so we're looking for that. When we create a space, as designers, we're looking for how we move and what experience you get and how you feel and what that says to you about who you are and where you belong. And so that journey in design is our journey.
Great, thank you very much. We've got about 10 minutes left. Can I open up for questions? Here's one out of the corner of my eye. please introduce yourself just briefly and then ask your question. And let us know who you'd like to address it.
Sure. This is this on? Okay. Okay. This is to Elora. I'm Renee Thorpe, Bali advertiser.
Hi.
Hi. I was at the John Hardy Jewelry Factory when it was a number of really interesting bamboo structures and an antique building under the auspices of the Ubud Writers and Readers Festival. I don't know what it was, 13, 14 years ago. And there were a couple of really amazing large sculpture, there you go, structures, bamboo for like a meeting hall or something. It was not used yet. Somebody there told me, oh, this is this German architect. Do you know who that was? I heard he passed away, but could you name him, please?
So German would be Jörg Stamm. He's a bamboo builder whose structural understanding and work with bamboo we relied on very much for all of the early structures, and then he also concepted the Ark. But he hasn't passed away, he's still alive. Aldo Landwehr was a sculptor with amazing vision. He was involved in the jewelry company, and then he was the creative director of many of the early Green School structures. He brought the beauty and the sense of form. That's Aldo Landwehr.
Any other questions from the audience? Yes.
I can speak up unless you need it to be recorded for posterity.
People online need to hear you.
That's fine. Thank you. Arief, can you also speak for a second about, there's so much to life in the forestry that you're talking about, but also even the data that involves the richness of the variety of greens, including foods, and I think you're trying to build, as if I understand correctly, the different recipes or even different things that cultures can take advantage of with respect to having a whole village, including just the timber, but the nutrition and the health of the people as well.
Yes, absolutely. A big part of our program, and it's, this program was created by a network of so many amazing people, so there's so many components to it that I can't really say all of it in one short way. But one part of our network is really looking at the indigenous food crops that you get from different perennial species, like moringa, like breadfruit, many different tubers under the ground that actually have amazing qualities that we need for our nutrition. And even bamboo shoots, right? The $93 billion industry in China is mostly domestic. It's only a few billion international export market. More than half of that is the shoot industry. So and and there's all these different species, even fungus, right? And hopefully even, I know it sounds weird, but insects, which is an interesting protein of the future, that actually these systems, these ecosystems, will be able to create that are far more productive than any other monocrop system that we've had all these, fights with the pests of plants and the pests of bugs that we fight off. And yet actually if we create an ecosystem, we get all the right, pests to come together and become partners in this amazing system, this ecosystem. Ecologically based pest management. And from there you get so much nutrition. So we can feed ourselves from these agroforestry systems as long as we can embrace complexity.
Mm-hmm. It feels like we're having this conversation in many different fields in a very similar way. Yeah. You're talking about agroforestry, biodiversity, you're talking about health and the microbiome, you're talking about social justice and diversity and inclusivity and embracing of other people and other things. It's just, it all feels like it's all mirrored, right? Mm-hmm. The way that we're set up as an educational system and as a culture does divide it up a bit.
Yes.
And that is essential for specialization, which is so valuable. But when we link it all together and when we listen to each other's bigger picture, it does feel like there's so much commonality.
Yes, indeed.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yes, you lady. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. My name's Karen Lewis and I live here. And I just wondered, when you see some of those amazing structures, they look not only amazing but expensive. Where does bamboo fit on the scale of building materials as to cost effectiveness? You know, you've put a very good argument for why we should look at it going forward for a whole lot of reasons. Is it cost effective to build with on a small scale? Like if I want to build my next house in bamboo, how does that compare with building it in other materials here?
Ultimately, it fits everywhere, but the innovation and the systems of construction and sometimes the industry of scale is what's needed to be able to have it be applying in many different layers. Something that's always come up from very early on is, how do we do this for earthquake relief housing, disaster relief housing, and the answer is yes, but we don't know how yet. Arief has been working on that a bit, and we need to look at how that innovation happens, how it gets funded, how it gets applied also in different contexts and different needs around the world. But the thing is that 10 years ago, 15 years ago, if you said that some really high-end and high-quality homes in Bali that would be celebrated would be made entirely out of bamboo, no one would have believed you. So ironically, maybe, the chance that we've had to innovate and to have the cost covered of that innovation have been through investment in these sort of high-end and more, I don't know, frivolous, you could even say, if you were accusing it. Like that layer of it has actually been the blessing that's allowed innovation to happen on one hand, but also a sense of valuing, a sense of aspiration. Like, I feel really proud that we've created a sense of aspiration in something that's so sustainable and that ultimately can and will be innovated to be accessible on so many levels. But it's like 20 years into anything that you could really call a long-lasting bamboo house. And it's really early days. What we've done will ultimately, I believe, be looked back at as this charming early expression of creativity in this like new material. And in 5-10 years, there will be so many different styles and on so many different levels. I hope that it will be taken into even higher, and hopefully there will be like luxury sky rises built out of bamboo. And hopefully it will be utilized so beautifully and effortlessly in many parts of the world, especially where it's grown, to create just quick solutions for simple housing, but also in a way that the people who need to live in that embrace and are proud of and excited about. So it's really so many layers to the conversation, and it's such early days.
I was interested to see how imaginatively bamboo was used after the earthquake in Lombok. There were a lot of building of houses and gazebos using bamboo as a sort of short to medium term solution.
And the only gaps in that, I imagine, would be that many of those have probably already been taken apart or fallen apart, either because they didn't have the basic steps in place to treat it properly, and or they didn't actually value it and want to live in it long term. They wanted the concrete. So it's even, no matter what level of housing you're thinking about, it also ties into aspiration and what you, how you identify. So we're changing that sense of identification, changing the sense of the international understanding of how to utilize the material, and then there's kind of this gap in the middle of the technologies in order to create efficiency, to use it in many ways.
Yeah, it's really interesting that a lot of these disasters that have spiked a huge demand in bamboo have actually decimated local to even like larger interregional supplies of bamboo, and you know, your weavers and all the different day-to-day artisans of bamboo have suffered because of this huge spike in middlemen, just like, you know, 100 trucks of bamboo that way, 1,000 trucks of bamboo that way, go get, you know, bring, and no value or respect of the forestry system, right? And that agro ecosystem that we have to maintain and keep productive. And they, you know, a lot of those areas had to start from zero, especially in Lombok. In the drier areas, when you clear cut a bamboo, it takes 10, 15 years to grow back, if at all.
Yes.
So, so yeah, you know, going back to that embracing of complexity in all that kind of the world is doing these days, I think we really do have to be much more aware and take the care needed so that all these approaches are sustainable.
Great. I think that's probably quite a nice note to end on. The sustainable thinking behind it all. So thank you both very much. I've certainly very much enjoyed talking to you. I hope our audience has also enjoyed and learned a lot about what they're doing. There's a lot more there. We could talk, I think, for another hour, but our time is up. So thank you very much for participating, and keep in touch.
Thank you, Gill.
And thank you all for supporting the Yayasan Mudra Swari Saraswati Patrons Program, and to the festival's partners who made the Ubud Writers Festival possible. Follow Ubud Writers Festival on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, or visit ubudwritersfestival.com for more information about the program. Thank you all very much indeed. Thank you. That went well. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.